Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again. Architecture is about the design of buildings, spaces, streets, and cities. It is not just about construction and technology. It is about the influence of built environment on our culture and ultimately the way we all live. This tends to suggest that to be a good architect, you must not only understand bricks and mortar, timber and steel, but most important of all, you must understand people. Be able to empathize with the human condition and to see through life's requirements to the opportunities. Tonight, within the boundaries of this hall, we are fortunate enough to have some people among us who are not only creating new environments for our better future, but also teaching us the way to live this environment, to appreciate, cherish, and nurture this environment. Dear audience, today I'm very delighted to be here this evening, mainly because of three reasons. Number one, this program is organized by Bangladeshi Architects in Australia, which I'm a part, and it is jointly organized by the University of Melbourne, which is also my university. I did my post-graduation in urban design from this university. And last but not the least, I had the opportunity to work with architect Rafiq Azam in his office, Shatatto Architecture for Green Living in Bangladesh. Dear guests, without getting carried away much further with my excitement, let's start today's program. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Pert. Professor Pert is the director of the Melbourne School of Design, the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning, the University of Melbourne. Dr. Pert is an architect, a researcher, and a teacher. It's this combination of skills which has led to his belief that architecture as a profession, and consequently the way in which it should be taught, is changing rapidly and becoming far more interdisciplinary. In addition to being an educator, Dr. Pert also ran his own award-winning practice, the Northern Office of Research and Design, NORD, which was formed as an architectural studio specializing in cross-media research, art practice, and architectural theory. At NORD, his work is said to be characterized by the ability to create something more or less out of nothing, and an invention and ability to get things built. While working at the University of Melbourne, he is still managing his practice and working on a range of architectural projects. We are greatly honored to have Dr. Pert among us today. Now, I would like to request Dr. Pert to come to the stage and deliver his welcoming speech on this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Pert.
Thank you very much. So, yes, I'm Professor Pert, Director of the school. Recently took over from Philip, who will be speaking in more depth about the work tonight. But I want to begin proceedings tonight by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which this event is taking place. The land of the Wurundjeri, and pay respect to their elders and families, both past and present. Now, it's a great honour and a pleasure to present this event in partnership with the Bangladeshi Architects in Australia, and I welcome you all here at the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning at the University of Melbourne. We're here to celebrate the launch of this fantastic publication, which Philip was gracious enough to give me a copy of it. It's not a book you want to be carrying about with you, but I've had the pleasure of having it for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it's an incredible publication, and I think to have a practice that's only 20 years old, which is, I think, still very young for a practice, it's an incredible body of work. Now, the title, Architecture for Green Living, I think is an interesting one. But I have to say, it's not a book about green architecture, as we have come to expect. There's a lot of books out there that touch on the subject of green architecture in a particular way. This is certainly not architecture about ticking a green box or adding technological devices to achieve particular carbon ratings. This is green architecture in a very specific way It tackles climate, I think, in context. So it achieves a whole notion of green in a very distinctive way across a whole range of building types, scales and sizes. So as someone who has not yet visited India, I feel Rafiq's projects managed to tell a wonderful story about particular places and about the culture of those places. Each project demonstrates an incredible sensitivity to climate and context, to materials, to history, and to light, shade and water. And each project explores these elements in its own unique way. As you can tell, I'm from Scotland. I grew up in a culture where our architectural response was to introvert ourselves from the weather, to close ourselves off and protect ourselves from the elements. A very introverted world in defence of architecture. I think Rafiq's works is a lesson in how to shelter while celebrating the uncertainty of weather. So I think there's a key lesson in it, and a lesson for me. And I have to say, it was a selfish act coming to Australia. As an architect who'd been practising for 15, 16 years in a heavy, defensible world of architecture, I wanted to come and explore another culture and another climate where the whole notion of weather, daylighting, sun, shade, could start to change the way you think about architecture. So it's a fantastic book that opens your eyes to that. I've just come back from Sri Lanka and had the pleasure of seeing Bauer's work, which is talked about in the book as well. So I think your work explores tropical architecture in a very different way than we traditionally understand. But for me, it's really fascinating to see the work of Can and the work of other people that I would not typically associate with one another come together in someone else's work. Can, as you probably know, was obsessed with Borthwick Castle, which I grew up very close to. So there's a link there. The other thing I wanted to touch on was just the drawings and the watercolours. In a world dominated by computer graphics, it's lovely to see an artist's hand at play. So you can find these throughout the book, some incredible sketches and an incredible depth of detail within those drawings as well. This is a breath of fresh air, as I say, in a world dominated sometimes by computer graphics. The sketches are incredibly detailed, and as the recent Domus article that talks about the book suggests, how the farmer and the fisherman react to climate and weather are there in Rafiq's watercolours. So again, this whole notion of a response to climate and the intricacies of weather and the changing patterns of weather is something that I think is embedded in the drawings and the watercolours, and you can clearly articulate that narrative in the finished project. So that notion of thinking through drawings, I think, is incredible, incredibly rich, and something you can clearly see in the body of work. I also want to acknowledge this notion of people in the public, and it's incredible to see someone working with particular scales of project, particularly apartment blocks, and still managing to achieve a civicness with them. So that notion of the rooftop and the street and opening up these boundary walls, I think, again, is a particular response which is not typical within that type of development, volume house building and flatted development. To have a strong civic agenda as an architect is a really important aspect. So, to conclude, I just want to thank you for exposing me to this body of work as an architect, and someone who I still feel as if I'm quite young in my career, I'd like to think, but also as an educator, because I think there's a really rich vein of ideas and graphic styles and thinking within the book. So it'll become, I'm sure, a reference point in the future for me. So we're going to hear firsthand from Rafiq. We've obviously seen the documentary film, but I'm also now going to invite Philip, who was one of the key people in writing a foreword to the book. Philip Goad is Chair of Architecture at the Melbourne School of Design, written extensively about architecture, not just in Australia but globally. So Philip will welcome you to the stage to give us a further insight into the work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. I feel extremely privileged to be invited to speak here this evening to help launch Rafiq Azam Architecture for Green Living, edited by Rosa Maria Falvo. It will be Wonderful. It's a shame that Rosa's not here, but she's in Milan, as good commissioning editors ought to be. But she was one of the great driving forces behind the book. But in fact, I felt enormously privileged throughout the whole project. Privileged because the book is a joint publication of Skira, one of the world's leading publishers on art and architecture since 1928, when Albert Skira first published books of poetry accompanied by engravings and gravures by Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse. And it's a joint venture, too, of not only Skira but the Bengal Foundation, which has a mission to celebrate and promote Bangladeshi arts and culture within the country and beyond. But I also feel privileged as an outsider to be included as a writer alongside an architect of stature like Australian ex-patriot Kerry Hill from Singapore, who wrote the foreword, and it's a very beautiful foreword, I have to say. Also to be featured alongside fellow scholar Bangladeshi expatriate Kazi Ashraf from the University of Hawaii. Privileged to work for Rosa Maria in her dedication to the promotion of Bengali arts and culture. But most of all, privileged to have been able to visit Dhaka and Chittagong and experience firsthand Bangladeshi culture, its people, its food, and its ravishing colours. Privileged above all to visit Rafiq Azam, his city, the very neighbourhood in which he grew up in old Dhaka, to meet his wife Afroza and son Araf, and their wonderful friends like Saeed Hassan Mahmood, Mr. Mahmood. To visit their home and share their food, to meet his staff, and of course, privileged to share in the excitement and wonder of their buildings. I first met Rafiq in Kuala Lumpur in 2008. And it's interesting as an Australian to, if you like, refocus where we're from and the conversations that we have globally. I met Rafiq in KL, at the KL City Hall. I was the MC at a symposium called Myer Tropical Architecture, a 2-day symposium organised by the Malaysian Institute of Architects. And Rafiq was one of the keynote speakers. And his presentation, I have to say then, was captivating. He was an architect not only producing aesthetically elegant and sophisticated buildings in one of the most challenging urban environments on the planet, but he was also investing his architecture with a cultural and an environmental adequacy that lifted his work into the realm of poetry. The name of Rafiq's practice is Shatatto. It's a Bangla word that means do something continuously. I wish I could use it in the studio. Come on, just do it again and again and you will learn. And this is what Rafiq and his office do. Through constant design iteration as an aesthetic and an urban strategy, and significantly as an ethical position, Rafiq has compiled a body of work remarkable not just in Bangladesh, but across tropical Asia and the Indian subcontinent, where urbanisation has proceeded with a voracious and relentless pace never before seen. So Shatatto is a public claim for architectural autonomy in a climate of what has to be said is rampant speculative development. His practice is a time-honoured statement of resistance when so easily architecture could be commandeered for far less noble purposes. His architecture sits alongside other contemporary practitioners in the region whose work has forged a path of productive resistance and whose names really many Australians ought to know. We ought to know the work of Studio Mumbai in India, Kevin Lowe in Malaysia, Andra Matan in Indonesia, and Angelendran in Sri Lanka. And Rafiq's name sits amongst that group. It's a manner of design practice that is thoroughly in tune with the constructive capacities of its context and which resists the spectacle of material excess. It's an architecture, where I've written in the book, of mannered humility. But what sets Rafiq's work apart from these others is that it is embedded in the specifics and challenge of the city in which he was born, Dhaka, a city of more than 15 million people, something which many Australians find very hard to actually understand. And Dhaka is now in the midst of a construction boom, a city that never sleeps, a city that has its choking dust washed by the monsoon, a city that turns brilliant green overnight and becomes a mythical built garden, and a teeming, uncontrollable polis all at once. As you've heard from Alan, Rafiq is also a painter, a very good one, and the book is full of his sketches and paintings as well as his buildings. His watercolours use water and degrees of saturation to describe depth, colour and mood. In Dhaka, there is water everywhere, or there should be, in the most populous city in a country that occupies the largest delta in the world. But in today's Dhaka, the ubiquity of water as a physical presence that occupies space is being challenged by the onslaught of human habitation. Dhaka, like any other city in Asia, is growing at a rapid rate. Azam's watercolour paintings are dreamy swathes of blue and green. There's also the occasional lonely dinghy that we saw on the film, these beautiful boats, charting a course across one of Azam's translucent green water bodies. Startlingly green water bodies because of the ecologically inevitable algae that forms there. There is nostalgia here in these paintings of Rafiq's for another Dhaka, one that might recover its water, a dream that Dhaka might recover its myriad landscape of oxbow lakes formed by the shifting tributaries of the great Ganges. In many of his buildings, Rafiq introduces lakes or ponds, bringing water back to Dhaka and at any level in a building. This is just one strategy of many that Rafiq suggests for the city. I think this book contains lessons for our own city. It celebrates courtyards, it celebrates gardens and water. It proves that high-rise residential living can have light, air, ventilation, and importantly, gardens at any level, something that our own city seems not to understand. Here in Rafiq Azam's work, what is possible in Dhaka should be possible in Melbourne. And so in the book, I write about dreaming, finding and making as critical design strategies in this architecture. In dreaming, Azam is like the famous Bengali philosophers Lalande and Tagore, a polymath. But instead of reshaping a region's literature and music, Azam is a painter, an architect and an engineer, reshaping Dhaka. He wants a Dhaka that has refound its environmental health, its green, through the three elements of courtyard, water and garden. In finding, I've written that Rafiq is a rationalist, a scientist of his city, in much the same way that the Greek architect Doxiadis, who also built in Dhaka, immersed himself in all scales of human habitation. Rafiq finds a Dhaka that might be rehoused with dignity, appropriate amenity, and with an urban purpose that harks back to the social ethics of modernism. And in making, Rafiq is the master mason. It was an absolute delight to see Rafiq talking to the workmen on site, and a lesson. He was one of them, and they treated him as one of them, but at the same time they respected his knowledge of craft, but he too, in return, gave enormous respect to their craft. And I must say, I've never seen such beautiful concrete work as a particular house that we saw in Chittagong. And the sensitivity with which Rafiq dealt with the master, if you like, mason on site. So he can direct the collective effort of the people, understanding brick and concrete not just as his, but also other people's language. So to conclude, these strategies constitute tactics for a new modernism in Bangladesh. And it's not presumptuous to use a colleague of mine, Vikram Prakash's term, a new third world modernism, to describe his work. The term third world is not used in a tokenistic way, it's deliberately chosen. For now, instead of a generation of architects in South Asia like Kanvinde, Muzharul Islam, who we heard about before, and Charles Correa, who'd all been educated in the US, Azam is symptomatic of a new generation of third world architects, educated in their home countries, they're fully cognizant of their own local modernisms, and they're eager to engage in a cosmopolitanism for their own times. Many commentators underestimate the real desire of third world architects then and now for a transnational exchange of ideas and practices, and critical experiment at home, and to use the Bangla term, Shatatto, doing it continuously. What is important is that the legitimacies of different knowledges be freely accepted and acknowledged, and this is how the architecture of Rafiq Azam needs to be understood. Instead of looking west, Rafiq looks to his own region of Bengal, but also to the work of his colleagues in South and Southeast Asia, but also east to Japan and Australia. We're part of his realm, so to speak. And it's always, however, though, Dhaka to which he returns. In the words of great Bangladeshi architect Muzharul Islam in 1992, an architect who paved the way for many others in Bangladesh, and I'm quoting Muzharul Islam here, "You have to be a world man and a Bengali. It's impossible otherwise." Rafiq is both of these. This very beautiful book, and I urge you to have a look at it and buy it, is testament to him and his city, and to the unsung beauty of the people and place that is Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alan and Dr. Philip, for your wonderful speeches. Dear audience, we are all gathered here today for the book launching ceremony of the book Rafiq Azam, Architecture for Green Living by architect Rafiq Azam. Mr. Rafiq Azam is a Bangladeshi. Like any part of the world, there are Bangladeshis in Australia who are working as architects. They have the same cultural background, ethics, same inspiration, which they are using to design a shopping center or a mixed-use complex or a residence in Australia. As Mr. Rafiq Azam mentioned in many interviews, to be a good architect, you need to learn about your country where you are working, your landscape, your people, your history, your sociology, your psychology, and typology, how your history produced architecture earlier and transformations. You have to learn how to transform things into contemporary world, and it also connects to the whole world. Now, I would like to request architect Tahmina Kakun to speak a few words on the Bangladeshi people living here in Australia, their practice of culture, their inspiration, and their approach towards the modern society through architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, architect Tahmina Kakun.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate architect Rafiq Azam on this very special occasion. I was very excited when I first read about his monograph, Architecture for Green Living, particularly because it will give me the opportunity to show some of his great works to my colleagues at work. Sometimes we do talk about contemporary architecture in Bangladesh, but we really don't have any compilation of works or publication to refer to. So in a way, this will let people know more about Bangladesh. To me, architecture is inseparable from culture. Space extends beyond bricks and mortar as an expression of the combination of art, music, and literature. It helps to shape how we know the world. As Mies van der Rohe puts it, architecture is the will of an epic translated into space, and it reflects time along with culture. With culture, essentially comes the question of cultural diversity. In Melbourne, it never feels like we, immigrants like us, don't belong here. It has such a great, versatile, multicultural environment. It has almost absorbed us within itself. In a very same day, we can walk along Bark Street, listening to some unknown artist playing Mexican instrument, have Italian food in Lygon Street for lunch, experience maybe Thai festival in Federation Square, and then join Bangladeshi Architects book launching program at the University of Melbourne, only because that's how it is in Melbourne. We Bangladeshis are adding our bits to this multicultural environment too. We bring along vibrant colors from our culture. We bring along Rabindranath Lalun. We bring along Pohela Falgun, first day of spring. Pohela Boishakh, our Bangla New Year celebration with us. In our hearts, we carry the unforgettable days, like 21st of February, Shohid Dibosh, now International Mother Language Day. 26th of March, Shadhinata Dibosh, our Independence Day. 16th of December, Bijoy Dibosh, our Victory Day. These gives us reasons to celebrate as a community, and we do celebrate as part of the community. German writer Goethe once said, "Architecture is frozen music," and you'll be surprised to know the variety of traditional music we have in Bangladesh. In our classical music, we even have a raga only for the rainy season. And we are eager to share our art, architecture, music, literature with other communities of Australia. Lastly, I'll conclude with quoting a few lines from Rabindranath Tagore's Nobel Prize accepting speech, which perhaps is still relevant. Referring to his institution Shantiniketan, he said, "Help us to make this university to a common institution for the East and the West. May they give the contributions of their lives, and may we all together make it living and representative of the undivided humanity of the world. For this I have come to you. I ask you this and claim it of you in the name of unity of men, and in the name of love, and in the name of God. I ask you to come. I invite you." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamina. Dear guests, our next speaker is Shamik Wise. Besides being an architect working for the Monash University, he is also the Melbourne coordinator of Bangladeshi Architects in Australia. He has organized and coordinated numerous architectural exhibitions by Bangladeshi architects in different places in Australia, and has always been trying to bridge the gap between architectural practices of Bangladeshis and Australians. Now, I would like to request Mr. Shamik Wise to come to the stage and speak a few words on architect Rafiq Azam.
Thank you, Atik, and thank you, Alan, Philip, and Kakon for giving an insight about Rafiq's architecture and a bit about our culture. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this book launch today. Back in my uni days in Bangladesh, we spent hours discussing designs by architects from near and far, sometimes over a cup of tea at Goad Institute or Alias Frases or at Drick Gallery. The terrace we used to hang around, our favorite most place, was open to sky, sitting with unseasoned shal tree, where shal tree was used as louvers to create the play of light and shadows all around the day. Today, I'm talking in front of the architect who designed that delightful space. As Bangladeshi architect myself, and as a representative of Bangladeshi architects in Australia, I feel proud and humbled. Thank you, Rafiq, for coming all the way from Dhaka just to attend this program and giving us the opportunity to talk about architecture of our region. I'm sure Bangladeshi architects present in this audience are feeling the same. To understand Rafiq's architecture and context, we only have to look back in the history of Bengal, our unique part of the world. Since Philip already spoke, and I just thought I'll just make some notes from what I understand of Bangladeshi architecture history. That is, it has monasteries like Paharpur and Mahastangor from Buddhist period, Shat Gambuz Mosque from Muslim, and Kantaji Temple from Hindu period, which are World Heritage listed. Bangla Ghar, or commonly known as bungalow, with Chochala roof, was the popular structure among Mughal rulers who replicated in their forts and cities throughout India. It was also adopted throughout British Empire to house their vast army and officials. With the changes of Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, and British periods, architecture in this region thus influenced and got influenced by in many centuries and got mixed form together with local materials and use. In the 80s, city population surged as people from rural and all parts of Bangladesh started to move to Dhaka, which was one of once a beautiful leafy city, making it one of the populated cities in the world by the turn of the century. Dhaka now has about 20 million and rising. This is, in this population surge, green parks and trees started to recede. And this is the similar scene in all new Asian cities. After 90s, a new generation of architects emerged in our country, rising up to the new identity of Dhaka with many buildings for its new needs. But the buildings constructed without any connection to the land, culture, and immediate context. The architectural education system and the architectural thoughts were completely dominated by Western ideas and culture, although there was a tremendous urge to respond to the local culture's needs and aspirations. Architect Rafiq Azam successfully solves the problem by balancing both, bridging the gap between our past nature and the city environment. For Rafiq, it has always been the nature, the relationship between human and the nature. The feature I found most amazing is when he gives back the garden to his mum by designing it to the second floor back in 1987. Similarly, when he creates a communal garden in a 450 square meter apartment in a dense old Dhaka setting, that tells us he got the right vision for the city. That's why he received so many awards in recent years, making him one of the most popular architects in the subcontinent and in the other parts of the world. Almost all countries in Asia have this enormous challenge of providing for a huge population in the world, 154 million in Bangladesh alone in 2012. With city population rise in Australia, the cities are not too far as well. So how do we design cities sustainably? Few architects like Tadawando, Kerry Hill, Ken Young, Glenn Market showed us the responsive and responsible way. In South Asia, Rafiq's way of design rises hope to the future of those cities. I hope Rafiq's book will similarly guide us better ways of living as well as become food for thought for architects and designers many years to come. Rafiq has been behind Bangladeshi Architects in Australia from the very beginning. Rafiq's involvement in BAA events, his travel bursary to Australian students, even this book launch has been helping the development of BAA and its members. I wish him best of luck and thank him for his efforts. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone who has been involved and tried their best to make this book launch successful. Thank you for listening, and thanks again for coming to this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamik. Dear audience, now it is the time for the person for whom we are all gathered here. Now it's the time for me to take pride as a Bangladeshi. Now it is the time as an architect to get some inspiration. Yes, you heard me right. Our next speaker is the author of the book, Rafiq Azam, Architecture for Green Living. Before he comes on stage to speak a few words, I would like to give a small description about him. Renowned Bangladeshi architect Rafiq Azam graduated from the Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology in 1989 and shot to fame after he renovated his family house in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. Since then, he has won numerous awards, such as winner of Emirates Glassleaf Award and World Architecture Community Award in 2012, the South Asian Architect of the Year Award in 2011, Cityscape Architecture Award for the project SA Residence in Dhaka in 2009, Kenneth F. Brown Asia Pacific Culture and Architecture Design Award, USA in 2007, Young Architects Award in the South Asian Architecture Award in 1999, Institute of Architects Bangladesh Design Award in 1996, Myer International Design Competition Award in 1991, to name a few. Besides all his architectural glamour, he is also an accomplished painter, you already know. He had numerous exhibitions of his architectural works and paintings in different parts of the world. Today, in addition to running his firm Shatatto, Architecture for Green Living in Dhaka, Azam lectures in universities all around the world. He is also a visiting lecturer at the NED University in Karachi. He is currently designing the Bangladesh High Commission in Islamabad. Dear guests, now I would like to request Mr. Rafiq Azam to come to the stage and speak a few words on this occasion.
Too much. Thank you very much. I would like to start with thanking Alan Pert for giving us the opportunity to be here today. He is the director of Melbourne School of Design. Dr. Philip Goad, my friend, thank you very much for all your support and inspiration and writing a fantastic, beautiful piece of writing I went through for many long time probably. And the Dean of Design School I just met. And ladies and gentlemen, very, very good evening. I'll just quickly go to the what's next? Yes, I'll take you quickly a boat journey. I would have to say a boat journey. This is Bangladesh. Your boat is the best carrier can take you from one place to another. I think it's 1976. I was just 13, and I got Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Gold Medal, which is a quite top of the world award for the young kids artists. And definitely you understand that I was looking to be an artist in future. So I was going through, and I used to draw a lot. It's my dad's personal assistant, PS wife. She used to come to our house. So I sit down, I want to draw you. And the sketches, watercolors, whatever, you know, they're all part of the city. And the Buriganga River. And this is the Dhaka, you know, where I was born and brought up. We can see how dense and crime city, devastating, oh gosh. And this is, I need a backslide. Philippa told me that it doesn't work to go back, so, yep. So we have an interesting apple. Yep, thank you, Philippa. This is something. The old house, I used to live here, and we had a beautiful courtyard with a nice garden on the south. And my father was not happy. You saw that in the documentary that I wanted to be a painter, and he was not happy. So I thought what to do. Then one of my cousins, she told me that you can be an architect, then you can continue your painting journey. So I admitted architecture school without knowing it properly what is architecture. And then I started with failed grades in the class, and gradually a lot of tough time. One of my teachers told me that you are below failed grade, I can't grade you. So this is how, you know. But after my father, he passed away in 1984, and I thought, let's go out of architecture and go to the art school. This best for me. I was a student of third year. Some of my friends told me, don't go do that. It's just 2 years more. You can be an architect, then go to whatever you feel like to do. So I just continued. And we had to design a house, new house. Old house is leaking, you know. My eldest brother gonna marry. So we need more rooms. We had 9 siblings, you know, very hard. So one design done by one architect, because, you know, I'm just poor student, I can do that. After seeing that design, my mother told me that one thing I never forget actually. She told me, look at the design. What is this? There's no garden, there's no courtyard. I lost my husband. Now I'm gonna lose my memories. There's no garden, no courtyard, where you used to spend time, 2 hours, and all of with you. So the first time I realized that architecture is all about, you know, not just design of drawings and plans and things like that. It's all about creating space where memories, you can contain the memories, which can generate and regenerate new memories, and holding your desire. So I used to say I learned architecture from my mother. So I designed this house with the courtyard at the first level of the house, second level, and this is the second level garden, without knowing it all, that how to put the earth and all the damp roof courts and things like that. But I learned it, you know. Situation bound, make you to learn. Yeah, this is the garden, the first level. No leaking so far. And this is the garden. Courtyard in the middle of the house, winter morning. Some of the sketches at the time. Summer, courtyard. And this is the very recent photograph of the front garden, second level of the house, You can see the trees are really big now. But the painting is always a very passionate thing for me. I just continue. And then I started, after graduation, I started traveling. I think traveling is very important for architect to learn how things happening all over the world. And this is in Nepal, a beautiful green crop field with brick houses in distance, narrow alleys, how the light is coming inside. And the view from the Kandalama Hotel by Bawa, that's amazing hotel, mesmerizing. And this is the village in the water in Myanmar. And Myanmar watercolor. And furnace building where Luekan used to teach in UPenn. And you know, he never went to the new building of architecture. He hates it. He hated it. And this is the place he used to go to teach. And the beautiful city, compact city, Hong Kong, the vertical city, the KL, Malaysia, and Sydney. This is from the Glen Market Masterclass, the Sydney forests. How many trees you want to draw? Just draw one, probably, that's good. And the Glen Market Masterclass drawing. Kerala, India, the monolith. And this is Assam's, close to Assam, the Darjeeling. You are talking about Assam, Darjeeling, a beautiful place, the clouds coming and going like, you know, like a painting, and merging the hills and mountains, blur together to become a piece of watercolor. So I'm going to talk a little bit on water. As you know, Bangladesh is the largest delta on earth, having thousands of rivers and more than 50 major rivers coming down from Himalayas and going through intricate pattern to the Bay of Bengal. And that's the reason, you know, human being, the relationship with water and human, and abundance of water makes Bangladesh probably a country of toil, but I would like to say it's a country of poetry. When monsoon comes, it's inundated 2/3 of the country's land, depicting water, the major element of countryscape. When water recedes, it leaves a fine layer of fertile alluvial soil, and the entire landscape transforms into large patches of paddy fields and dancing with the winds. It's just beautiful. And you know why I used to do watercolor? It's water and green together. And this is how I love to start it. I started like this, like as if I'm doing watercolor, architecture by watercolor. So the strokes of brush, you know, you see, you're talking about the three gallery. The logs, you know, is putting like lines like a watercolor brush and transparent. So yeah, logically watercolor. And I love to use watercolor as base of my my architecture. Just a green and coming out a piece of wall. It's all about architecture. It's like a sculpture, like a piece of art. The water, the light. The yellow harvest field, my painting. The farmer, smiling farmer with the extended hat, mathal, very scientific, transformed into architecture as a parasol. My architectural drawing, a breeze flowing over the water, the midday sun downing and lightening the western face of the house, stretching and stretching this last light to twilight. After the dark night, crossing the winter foggy morning, the first light touches the water and green, it becomes watercolor again. Watercolor becomes architecture. Architecture becomes light. Light touches the water. It's touching our soul. But after everything, this is our city. How we are making our city. It's unbelievable. Uncertainty, unreliability, not sustainable city. So we have responsibility as an architect. We need to think. I think we need to think very seriously. So we are looking for a piece of land that we can really work with the people. Like this area is like 400 years old, impoverished city, Mughal city. And you can see that small house, which is a very small land, like 280 square meter house in the alley. This stretch of 400 feet alley, 400 years alley. You see the house, which has a very small house, 3 apartments each floor, 3 apartments each floor, and how the green is actually creeping up, calculating the sun movement. We have 14 apartments here, and each and every apartment is having their gardens. And apartment size is very small, like 450 square feet, which is like 45 square meter, 50 square meter, and 60 square meter houses. Each floor, 14 apartments, 12 gardens. Each and one is having their garden and view. The kitchen garden. And this is a very humble house, not like a glossy architecture coming out suddenly out of the blues in the neighborhood. Very simple construction, concrete and brick exposed. Lot of trees, no boundary wall, just green, patch green. The birds are coming back. And the middle court in the 4th and 5th level, the courtyard in the 5th level, which is only 1.5 meter wide, but very scientifically connected. Round the year sun is there, round the year sun, the birds are there, butterflies are moving there, the kids are enjoying, the breeze is coming and going out the hot air from the house. And the kids are not going much to the doctors here. They have a lot of research on it from UPenn, from local universities. They found it, they gave me the information. So this is healthy sort of architecture. And this is a 45 square meter house on the 4th level, you can see. And this neighbor house, you can have getting the south wind and the view from the dining space, the moving leaves. So we can connect actually the beautiful things. We can share things rather than survival of the fittest. We can live survival by cooperation, and we can really enjoy the good places. And I think after all the pain and difficulties in life, we need to live poetically, as Heidegger says, yet poetically man dwells. It's true, I believe it, it's true, it's possible. And this is another small project, half of the previous site, 140 square meter, and people challenge me that you can't do it continuously like that. Everything like small, and everything is there. So we accommodated 4 important things: library, gymnasium, tea stall, because these are the 4 important things in the society required. You go and think, you learn, you exercise, you share. So we put the house in a small land, the building, like this. So a lot of things in a small, like a capsule thing. The old houses were losing, so by the projector we are developing the awareness that these are the houses we are losing. This is, I would like to talk a little bit. You see house, Philip was there, I remember. This one, look at the beautiful street, you know. Rickshaw, bell and honking hawkers going through, and the house, and we can sit here, every house is similar. And the road become a theatrical space. And we can enjoy from here. So the relationship is very friendly and, you know, very respectful to each other, the passerby and the street. But we change it now. Everywhere say high boundary wall. I was talking about in the documentary that barbed wire and, you know, beware of dogs. Somewhere probably in developed countries, armed response also. So these are how we are communicating with the world, which is actually degrading our social contacts and homogeneity. So we change it a little bit of removing the boundary wall, building as a tree, part of the street, part of the community. Kids can go up without any reason, steps up and down, and people can sit there. Our fresh air, oxygen, going through, having a little bit of freshness. At the bench, from inside out, extending hand, we sit here, they can sit outside. And then we started putting grass boundary wall, because we thought, it's really funny that we thought, okay, when the boundary wall is really big and thick and high, our society is very weak. So let's make the boundary wall fragile and vulnerable. Then society will be rich and thick. And we started putting things close to the street, beautiful sitting space and water body, like we are walking through a living space, like a living room. And we have 6 seasons. We can use the 6 seasons. We can create the wind, less light. In the winter, we allow the light inside room, deep inside the sun. And we can have a green room for my partner is green, you know. We have partners, they can go away. We can have another partner, but green goes away. You don't have anything else. You have to die. So why not a space like dining room, like a drawing room, like a bedroom? There is room for the green, dedicated room. So we started putting rooms for the green. So it needs no roof, it needs rain, it needs sunlight. So put it in position such a way that it can get all these things. And we have that corner is the wind room. So green room, wind room. You sit here, cross ventilation very quickly, like a Hawa Mahal in India, you know. Hawa Mahal is cross winds and beautiful, you know. You enjoy in the summertime. And we can have a rain room where you can collect the rain and celebrate the rain. You enjoy the rain, the evening, and let the water go where you don't need it. Use it as a veranda. It's just shallow water, like 2 or 3 inches water, nothing else. So we can dramatize our life in a very simple way. Day room. The day room. We can have a rain room, and above there's an anger releasing room. This is an anger releasing room here. The most beautiful room. If you're angry, I'm sure you are angry sometimes. So you can go somewhere, you can sit down, and somebody is coming from your house asking you, come back for the lunch or come back for the dinner. You don't say, no, I'll not go back. So that's the most beautiful place. Turn on the music, think, look at beautiful garden, overlook the beautiful water body, the bridge is coming. You need in a city also, beautiful place. Some places you can go, you can, come down and can think who you are, what you need to be done next. So to me, everything is like painting actually, architecture or art, whatever. It's like art and architecture, all same. We can have plan like monsoon plan, flooded with the water, and the winter plan. You can see the steps came out, just like this one. Rainy season is flooded, beautiful boat, and goes down the water, revealing the steps. And then monsoon, it goes off like a mystery. we're interested in how sun moves, how wind moves, and we got this house when there is a 49 window face looking at my side. So my client was first concern was how to create the PVC. So we suggested them, my client, that we will have a wall like a Mughal wall, as Mughal did, the living wall, a thin wall, which is like 15 feet wide, to stop all the windows, and then you create the L-shaped house. So you justify three things: typology, the courtyard, the climatology, and also the context. So house developed. So this came out like this. At the top, there was a requirement of swimming pool. I told my client, I can't design any swimming pool because I don't understand swimming pool. I am from Bangladesh, we have a lot of ponds, so I understand swimming pond. So he asked me, what do you mean by swimming pond? My answer was, swimming pond is supposed to have a ghatla, which is steps into the water, and some jungla. It's like a little bit of jungle, tiny patch of green, it becomes pond. So it's swimming pond. So this is how you see top the swimming pond having steps and big trees. The trees like now probably it's like 35, 40 feet tall, having the earth like 3-meter earth. It's a heavy duty earth in it. So my duty is to create the poetry, not the difficulties, to show you that how difficult it is to make a beautiful space. So this is what is architect's duty. So this is how we develop tropicality in our country. This is in Malaysia, so I used to say, when I go any parts of the world, I carry the water of Bangladesh. So this is the water you see from Bangladesh, exported. Okay. This is the water. This is the building. This is the building. I'm carrying the water from Bangladesh, the Chancery complex. This is my emotion actually, because I think an architect first is a human being, and wherever he is going, he's carrying his memories. And I carry the memories of 3,000 years, almost like 3,000 years old Buddhist monasteries, beautiful Buddhist brickworks. And this is, I was interested because I was designing the Chancery complex in Islamabad. I'm sure you know that this one is Mohenjo-daro, the oldest civilization of the world in Indus Valley. The beautiful bath, great bath in front, and the brick structure. So two has a relationship actually. So we have a very difficult time with Pakistan. We have 71 war with them. So I cannot produce something where is apparently very, very friendship. Then my country will be misunderstanding me probably. So I was a bit political. So we design, we say the building is an archaeological landscape. The land belongs to Pakistan, building belongs to Bangladesh. This is a great meeting ground of two great civilizations. This is how we emphasize the beautifulness of two countries, the archaeology. And of course the climatology you justify, and the blue, this is the water, the delta representing the Margala Hill in front, in southwest. And this is how the building came up. We're going to start soon. The steps, the grassy steps, it's like memory, you know, nobody's walking through a long time. So it's like growing, like algae growing. And moisturizing the whole area to reduce the consumption of air condition with the same water that are collected from the rain. And this is archaeological landscape. And the huge parasol as a jali, not as a roof, to allow the sun and minimize the evaporation of the water to moisturize the whole area. And this man is Jagadish Chandra Bosu, Sir Jagadish Chandra Bosu, who was the fantastic 19th century scientist who first proved that every inanimate object has life. Actually, he said there is nothing like animate and inanimate object. Just for our own convenience, we draw a line that this is inanimate, this is animate. But scientifically, there's no line in between. It's all actually having life, embedded life. And he's the first man who proved tree speaks. He invented the Kerskograph, and he invented the microwave, the radio, not Marconi actually. Marconi just patented. but he's the man who invented, and now Science Society, they agreed it. So this is the man actually. Why I'm talking about him, you will be able to understand. This is the statue, you know, 350 BC, like a Critias boy. Because many sculptors tried to create something lively. We all try to create something lively, you know, our creation. But like discus throw or running, Olympic, nothing is all fixed. This one, finally all agreed that is full of life, standing like a lazily, and the skin like a drapery, the stone becomes drapery. So it's very, very lively statue. Everyone's, struggle to put life into their creativity. Like Michelangelo, after making this, he asked himself to this statue, will you talk to me now? And Louis Icahn says, he asked brick, hey brick, you want to be? Brick says, an arch. So, you know, they believe that it has life. And Jagadish Chandra Bosu, who proved scientifically that everything has life. And Einstein told about Jagadish that he is the man. We should build many monuments for his each and every invention. He was so close of friends of Einstein. And his disciple, Higgs boson theory, or Higgs boson theory, Higgs boson particle, you know, Higgs boson, his disciple, Satyan Bose. So they are top class scientists in the world, but we never go through them. So we need to look at all these things. Why I'm talking all these things? Does architecture have life? I think as I end of my journey, boat is on. And Lalon Fakir, Lalon Shah, is like a 18th century philosopher. He says, if one thing is not inside your body, then it is not outside the body either. So he talked about human being, his two parts. It's the shell and the soul. Shell and soul interdependent, yet independent. They belong to each other and they belong to themselves. And you think that Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. I mean, I can think, so this is my existence. But is it true? If you can think, let's think, I'll not think tomorrow. Can you do that? Probably Descartes is half right, half wrong. This man is correct. He says, like a bird, it comes into you, all the thoughts, and goes out of you. What you can do, only you can develop the relationship, nothing else. So architecture can be similar. Like we can develop scientifically correct shell, and all the mother nature coming into it and going out of it. Rain coming in, going out of it. The wind comes in and goes out of it. You know, the fragrance coming in and goes out of it. This is how we can dialogue and create the dialogue and develop the architecture, soul and shell together. Look, change. The sun changes, the envelope started talking the other way. The winter sun inclines, entering into deep. The mother nature is just entering. And the beautiful sun touching the wall lightly. Jalaluddin Rumi, the 12th century philosopher, mystic philosopher, you probably know him, he's a wonderful Sufi. He says, when light returns to its source, it takes back nothing from it has illuminated. We can be just like, when we go back, we'll enlighten other people, we will take nothing back from them. But when light returns to its source, end of the day, I say, no, light has touched my beautiful wall, and it has the memory. It has taken the memory when it went back. But it needs a lot of science, a lot of knowledge. Think, a small dinghy boat waiting by the ghat in the harsh urban context, with the patch green and light, unfolding with its silence, nothingness, where shell and soul cohabit and purify themselves. let the soul come inside your body and let's go of it and let it be and let it be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rafiq Azam, for your inspiring presentation. With this, I want to conclude first part of today's program. In second part, Architect Rafiq Azam will be signing his book for you and answer all your questions you have, and there will be refreshments for you. Before concluding, I want to thank the University of Melbourne to organize such an inspiring event. At the same time, I want to thank Professor Philip Goad, Professor Alan Pert, and all the members of Bangladeshi Architects in Australia, and all staffs from Architect Rafiq Azam's office, Shatatto Architecture for Green Living, for their efforts to make this book launching ceremony a success. Besides, I want to thank and congratulate Architect Rafiq Azam for his initiation to make our environment sustainable through design and inspire us to think about the most important topic of today's world, sustainability. Last but not the least, my sincere gratitude to all the guests present here today who have come a long way to attend today's program. Thank you all for your participation and see you in near future. Good night.